So, Dusty from Vision Video, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, hi everybody. I'm Dusty Gannon from the band Vision Video. You might also know me as your dear old goth dad on social media, but I play guitar and sing in this sort of gothy post-punk, amalgam of genres band called Vision Video. We're based out of here in Athens, Georgia.
Fantastic. Where did you get the name from for the band Vision Video?
It's a great question. So Vision Video was the name of a much beloved video store here in Athens. It was kind of like the non-chain, like it was locally owned. They had a few locations around Athens, but they started in the I think the late 80s and went all the way through up till I think 2016. They lasted quite a while into the sort of streaming digital age because it was so beloved, and it was so cherished by the community. It was kind of like we had the big chain rental places back in the day, like Blockbuster Video and
Yeah.
whatnot. It was the punk rock version of that, basically. When you went in there, so the first thing you would always see going into a Vision Video was in the window and the precipice of the storefront, you would see just tons of band flyers for every single show that was going to be happening for the next month. I mean, it would almost be like opaque that you couldn't see through the windows because there'd be so many flyers of bands. Because here in Athens, music is such an institution. It's live music is the beating heart of the body of Athens. We have that history with bands like Pylon and REM and the B-52s and whatnot. But anyway, so you'd walk in, and there was always usually college student running the store or the shop for the day, and they were often a very like alternative person. Like my favorite location when I was like in my late teens, early 20s was like there was this like kind of punk rock girl that I was smitten with, and she would run the place, and she was rolling, and they would always be in the know. They were movie people, and they were music people, and you would go and you'd bring in. So they had this crazy deal. It's called 5 for 5. You get 5 movies, $5 for 5 nights, which is awesome. And they had all the weird stuff. They had all the cult horror and bizarre oddities, and just like movies like Harold and Maude and Dead Alive and whatever, like all the weird stuff.
Yep.
So, and the great thing is like these people would know you after a while, because I would go there all the time, and they get to know your name, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, what'd you think of Dead Alive? What? Okay, next you got to check out this movie next," and then there was just a real genuine sense of like the concept of community around that place, and when it went away, that was like for me that was like one of the first indicators that society, like in a very literal way, that society was changing in a way that I really didn't like it. Because what the loss of places like that, or like record stores, or things that help curate our media through
Yeah.
people, we're seeing everything being handed to us by like AI and algorithms, right? Like, so you watch stuff on Netflix, and then Netflix says, "Oh, you're gonna love this," but 9 times out of 10, it's like total trash, and you hate it, and you're like,
Yep.
"This is stupid." Because the problem with AI and algorithms is, as advanced as they can be, and as much as they can look at indicators of what you probably will like, there's no room for nuance, and these things will never understand like human nuance, because sometimes you have to take risks, and those algorithms will never be trained to take risks. It will be trained for the sure thing. It will be like, it'll give you something you've already seen 10,000 times before, because it already knows that you're going to like it.
Yep.
So anyway, it kind of came up when we were naming the band. It took us kind of a while to name the band. We were like going through like a month period where we were just like playing music. We had all these songs, but we were just like in this amorphous amalgam of musicians as a three piece as we started out. And yeah, basically, our original drummer Jason Fusco was like, oh, what if we called it Vision Video, like the video store? And I was like, that's the thing right there, man. That's it. Because it's something that pays homage to our city that I really genuinely have loved. I have left and come back to this town twice, and yeah, it's just but it also pays homage to that notion of times that are gone that I think humanity is lacking in because of the loss of those things, of those communal spaces, especially. Are you familiar with the concept of the third place?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So, like, the third place, for those of you that don't know, the third place is this idea that we need places in society. The first place is like your home. The second place is like your job. But the third place that basically needs society needs to sort of proliferate and provide good for the public is these places that are very low cost or no cost, where people can get together, talk, hang out. It's like the pub in England is the
Yeah,
third place. Like, you can have a pint for very cheap in England, and nobody's going to tell you you need to leave if you're not like constantly drinking. You know, you can sit and nurse a single pint in a pub in England, and you will be left alone for the evening.
yeah, it's true.
So we're losing these in America, especially. Like, we're really losing the third place. It's just disappeared. Like, all the parks are dilapidated. I mean, especially, God, what we're about to experience is a complete removal of the third place under our new glorious leader. Um, so yeah, something spoke to me about that with through the nostalgia and the sort of wistful nature, because I think there's a lot of that in our music. So that's
Yeah,
probably the long worded answer I've ever given to that.
no, no, that's good. But I think you've achieved almost that community place where, because I see your TikToks, and it's amazing how many people on their TikToks mention you as
Mm,
Goth Dad.
yeah.
It's that community that you've created. So you kind of achieved it in a virtual way.
Right, right. Well, that's the thing is, like, I think people have, because there is no physical space being provided anymore. There, people are gravitating towards it in a virtual way, but it's kind of upsetting to me because you have to, like, human beings have to commune together physically.
Yeah,
No virtual connection will ever, I mean, this is like, it's really cool that, like, we're on a Zoom meeting right now, and I can look at you, but like this, it would not, like, we would have, and this is great, but we would have an even better time if we were in a pub
exactly.
having this
Yeah,
conversation, recording it over a pint. You know what I mean? Like, that would
exactly.
be an even better experience. But yeah, I mean, I think that the internet and like what's happened with like the whole goth dad thing, which is kind of ironic to me now, because I haven't really done goth dad stuff in a long time, because it was like I kind of hit a wall with it where I was like, where does this go? Because, like, hey, I'm not an actual dad. I'm a cat dad, I guess, but like I don't have children. Like, and there's only so much that I could do with it, where it's like they're just kind of like everything else was starting to feel forced, and I wasn't enjoying it. But regardless of you know whether that kept going or not, like, people just refer to me as goth dad now,
Yeah,
and I'm fine with it. It's not like it upsets me or anything. It's just kind of like funny to me now. Um, but regardless, I think that you know it did create, yeah, like a community of people who. So I grew up with a goth scene. I've been involved in this stuff for like 22, 23 years. I've kind of got into it in my later teen years. And I one thing that I never really loved about the goth scene was, like, people take it way too seriously, especially on the internet, less so in person,
yeah,
but on the internet, like, people are just like so like curmudgeony and like shitty about everything, and they argue about everything, and it makes it this like really staunch, terse environment where, like, I'm like, no kids are gonna want to come into this scene to keep it alive, because they're like oh, everybody's just fighting and there's drama and gossip, and
Yep.
it's just like a constant perpetual argument about what is goth and what's not, which is the dumbest thing in the world to
Yep.
me. So I think that what the goth dad thing did do was it opened this like door of levity for people who are like, I love this stuff and I love this music and I love this world and this aesthetic and all this stuff, but I don't like, it's not like the end all be all. And I'm not like feral, like frothing at the mouth about it when like, you know, somebody calls a band goth that isn't, or what, you know, it's just
Yeah.
people that want to have a bit of levity found each other through this stuff. And I think that's a really important thing. Um, because we're kind of known to take ourselves way too
Bit
seriously.
like it's the gatekeepers, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
How
yeah.
they
I mean, and I understand like gatekeeping to some effect because you know there does have to be sort of a left and a right limit. You know, like you know, I think like I look at bands like Evanescence is a great example because it's like people a lot of times are like, oh, that's a goth band, right? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's because goth is a genre of music, but then I confuse the hell out of them because I'm like, yeah, it's a genre of music that has a specific sound, but it's also a very ephemeral sound as well. It's very, it's I think of it as an umbrella term, and there's kind of a left and a right limit, and and within that people argue relentlessly to no ends like what those left and right limits are. I mean, even like constantly people argue whether Vision Video is like goth or not, which I mean, I don't personally care. I mean, I think it's like it's it works within the framework, but I don't like lose my mind over it. You know, like it's not like the end all be all for me. But yeah, so but people just get into that space of arguing about the specificity so much so that I think it turns a lot of people off. Where you know, and you don't see that happening with like punk rock or metal as much. Like you know, it's more like, yeah, that band just sucks, and I don't care. Okay, cool, whatever. Like, there's nobody like that's not metal. Like, I don't know. I don't see that as much anyway.
No, I do remember the argument back when I was younger. Well, was especially with the Jam.
Mm,
Some said it was punk, some said it
yeah,
wasn't, and it was like, where do they sit? And it's like wherever you want them to.
right, right. Well,
You
and I
enjoy
think
it,
it's
listen.
important to acknowledge that, like, you know, I mean, you look at the Cure, right? I think the Cure is a great example of a goth band. You know, I mean, Robert Smith himself is like, we're not a goth band, and
Yeah,
all the greats, of course, refuse to acknowledge the moniker, like they, you know, but you know they went through eras and stages, and even within individual albums, you know, there are songs on Pornography and Disintegration, in 17 Seconds, you know, which I would argue are like the gothiest of all their records. But there are even songs on those records that aren't like pointedly goth song, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, but you know, like they still fit, and they and nobody does, like not a lot of people in their right minds would like really debate the fact that they're like well within the goth community. um so you know, I mean, to me it's more important to worry about the sense of, you know, like I said, that left and right limit. Like, does it kind of work within the framework? Yes. Okay, then who cares? But what's more important is like the sense of community and sort of like building what is very tenuous, and what can disappear like that, because goth will always has been and always will be, and I think ever will further be, a thing that could just evaporate
yeah.
very quickly. At least in the sense of like live performance music, you know, there will always probably be like a goth night in some city somewhere. But I think that right now, like the scene is very healthy, and there's a lot of bands
Yes.
touring and playing live, and there's like sort of this what I would call maybe the fourth wave of goth music. You have like 80s, you have the 90s, you have the early 2000s, and then you have now. Um and yeah, I mean, it's healthy now, but live music in general is getting really difficult. Like as a full-time musician, it is insanely difficult to just get by and to continue to do what we do, because it's like touring is becoming so insanely expensive,
Yeah.
that you have to be really balanced with the business aspect and administration, and the like sort of balancing the checkbook, so to speak, like making sure the bank account is like doing okay and you're not spending too much. But it requires like a little bit of business acumen, which is not my forte at all. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, I think it's more important that people really focus on keeping the scene alive, or undead, as it were, or whatever.
But it's certainly, like you said, it seems quite healthy at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
there's I look at bands that are on tour right now, like the Chameleons, the March Violets.
Yeah.
We're going on tour with the Chameleons in the UK and in Ireland in a couple weeks. um there's so many modern bands that are out there: Nox Novacula, Secret Shame. There's so many just absolutely phenomenal musicians making really cool music that I think is equally as good as what was being made in the 80s, if not in some cases better.
Yeah.
I think we have a tendency to look back at the 80s and be like, that's the end all be all, and it's like, yes, it was really really phenomenal, but like, people also forget to like listen to full Bauhaus records, because some of those Bauhaus records have songs that are just like four guys on massive amounts of amphetamines making weird noise.
Yeah.
And it's not like, it's like, it's very experimental. It's like, I'm not, I won't say it's bad, but it's like, it's not like some of their albums are like not records I can put on from point A to point B and just let it ride. There's a lot of like bizarre, not so great music from that time. We think about the in the flat field, but we don't remember fish cakes,
Yeah.
like, which I kind of love that song. But anyway, regardless,
And
yeah,
some of the lyrics of Bauhaus, I think it was it wake up, eat early and eat jelly?
yeah, yeah.
What?
It's like, what? Yeah, wake up, eat jelly, sandwich bars and barbed wire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the
Like,
hell is that on about?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there was a lot of experimentation back then, which is something that I will say, the one thing that I miss about that era of music was the experimental aspect, though, because I think you have to kind of make a bunch of like weird stuff that is borderline unlistenable to get the really incredible song. Like In the Flat Field to me is like one of my favorite goth rock songs because of the sneering tape delay guitars that Daniel Ash does in the beginning of the song, and just kind of, it's like, it just feels like tension and fear made into a sonic form. But again, though, like, what the hell is that song about? I've read the lyrics to that song maybe 30 times, and every single time I listen to that song, I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? Like, what is he singing about?
Yeah. But then they had crowds. I think that was the piano track.
Sorry, my sister's here.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, that's
that's powerful song.
yeah, again, a very a strange song about, like, I mean, maybe a failed relationship is what I get from
I think
that,
so.
but
Very bitter as well, by the sounds of it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's sort of a that song is very like Bowie-esque to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. A lot of people, um, again, venerate Bauhaus to be like the goth band, and I think they're very right in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's just like straight up Bowie. It's like glam, or it's T-Rex or Bowie. I mean, they covered both of the bands. So
Yeah, and their version of Ziggy Stardust, I think, was amazing.
I think it's better than Bowie's.
I
Heresy,
I
but
wasn't gonna say it, Dusty, because I didn't want to cause controversy. But I will say I agree with you. I do think their version was better.
yeah,
But then there's a band in America. and they did oh god, I can't remember the name of the song, but they covered a Bauhaus one, and they're called Ex Photo. You must have heard of them, I would have
Oh
thought.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Those guys are great. Yeah.
Um, oh, they covered one of the Bauhaus songs, and I personally think, being a Bauhaus fan, I
Mm,
think Ex Photo did it better.
yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it can work always, can't it? I mean, but yeah, there will be people who will be out with their crucifixes for me for those things, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't care. You know,
Yeah. You
that's
have
my
to watch your
opinion.
back.
Yeah,
Likewise.
exactly. Yeah, I just think that if it's better, it's better. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's the fun part of music, though, isn't it? Like that it's so insanely subjective experience, and
it's,
like it can be the difference of guitar tone that just shifts the favor of a track completely into something very different. You know what I mean? And that's a really interesting experience. Like hearing an artist interpret somebody else's song
yeah.
and make it into a totally different experience. And I like that. I really love covers a lot, actually.
Some are surprisingly excellent, aren't they?
Mm.
I really do think that some bands, some artists, whichever, they do a very good job of covering a song, and they put their own spin on it, and you think, bloody hell, do you know what? That is
Yeah.
really good.
Oh yeah. Like I think the immediate one comes to mind for me is Dead Souls by Nine Inch Nails, covering Joy
Yep.
Division. I mean, I think the Joy Division song is brilliant. It's an amazing track, but the intensity, especially at the end of the track in the Nine Inch Nails cover, is just like, I mean, you can't challenge that. Like, I think they really took something and made it better. You know,
You saying that,
really good.
ironic Joy Division. Have you heard Moby's version of New Dawn Fades?
I have not actually. No.
Bloody fantastic. I don't even like Moby, but his version of New Dawn Fades, I heard it
Yeah.
once by accident, and I
Hmm.
thought, whoa, who the hell is doing this? This is absolutely fantastic, this version.
Yeah.
And it, Moby, and you think,
Yeah, and you wouldn't ever expect that. But that's,
what
well,
the
that I
hell?
know what I'm listening to right after this. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is a really, really good version. And it's like, wow, I wouldn't have believed that. I would not in a million years have put those two together.
Yeah.
But it is a really, he puts the feeling in, it's got the music, it's got everything. He's got it right.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to check that out. That sounds cool.
But on to you, your new album,
Yeah.
released 22nd of October.
Hmm. Yep. It's coming out a couple
Uh,
weeks now.
Modern Horror. Wow. And the title track, Modern Horror. What a track, Dusty.
Thank you.
It
Yeah,
really is.
I was listening to a lot of Gang of Four when I wrote that song. And I was listening to the song Call Me Up. And that song, that's one of my favorite songs, like maybe ever. That's such a great song. And it starts with just this sneering guitar, but then it just comes in with this like kind of menacing, but still kind of funky, like dancey bass line. And I was like, man, I want to write a song like that, and so I kind of came up with a bass line. I mean, that's all we are as musicians. We're just ripping off people we like and just making it a little different. And but I started this like kind of bass line, I kept whittling it down, and and the whole intention with that song was like around that bass line, because the bass line literally never changes in the whole song. Because I was like, you got to find a bass line that just makes you move. And I was standing here in the studio room, and with my short scale, I have a little Gretsch, like real like punchy little Gretsch, and I played the bass line and I put some distortion on it and put some chorus on it, and I was like, and I found it, and I literally, it was crazy. It was like just I played that bass line for like an hour, and I'm not a bass player really, so my fingers were like sore as hell, but I was like dancing in the room, and I was like, that's the moment where I know it's right, is when it's like when I'm really like lost in that groove. So I found that, and then I put it down, and I just kept the guitars like really sparse, and I had like a drum machine on, just like program drums. And yeah, I mean, that song is, it I wanted it to be sort of I knew that was going to be the opening track. Like as soon as the music started to coalesce, because I was like, all right, this is the thing that pulls you in, but I needed to like punch the listener in the head with the lyrics too.
Yeah.
And I was, and at that time, that was, I wrote that song like right around the time that uh the atrocities that are happening in Palestine were really starting to kind of become apparent, and all the political campaigning was really starting to come into full swing, like last year, around this time last year. And it was just, and it felt like, I mean, that's where the first line, information overload, I can't seem to keep it straight. That's like how I felt. I mean, it's just like we are inundated with awful horror just everywhere. And
Yeah.
that's where the kind of chorus line came from: modern horror all around, our dreams are dead and in the ground. Because it's becoming pretty apparent here in America, like we are in a bad way. We're in a really, really rough place. And I had no concept of how bad that would go. But looking at like a potential second Trump, term, and just the circumstances of life here are just getting really tough, for especially for marginalized people. Um, but there's a tension here. There's a fear that's palpable, for a lot of people in this country. And yeah, and I wanted to write something that just really set the stage for the rest of that record.
Oh, and
So
it does.
yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites on the album.
See, I heard in that there was elements of. Do you remember the band The Alarm?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love the
Something,
alarm.
just something in there, just kept making me think of The Alarm,
Yeah,
but I
I
couldn't
think,
pick out what it was. But there was something about that track, and
yeah,
but I did absolutely, well, I do absolutely love that track. It is
nice.
such a good track, Dusty. It really is.
Yeah. What I really love about that track though is when we went to the studio to record it, our drummer Ryan Houchins, he's new to the band. You know, um he just he's one of the best drummers I've ever seen in any band. I'm not just saying that because he's in Vision Video.
No,
He is absolutely incredible. And he, at one point he was like, I'm just gonna do some like weird percussive stuff and just like beat on some things. And you hear a lot of that, especially in the choruses. There's a lot of like him just like hitting objects in the studio, like metal, just like clanking things and like throwing stuff around. And it adds to this like kind of gritty bizarreness that really lays low in the mix sonically. But I think you hear it without fully processing it. But maybe, yeah, like listen to the chorus and just listen to all the weird percussive stuff that's happening. It makes it a little dissonant, but in a really tight kind of way, and it's really cool.
and your vocals in that, I think rather than out and out kind of singing, it's more of a chant
Yeah.
through it, and it's
Yes.
just so. It's such a powerful song. It really is one hell of an opening for an album.
Thanks.
It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, that's exactly the intention, was just to be the sort of like rhythmic hypnotism, because that's, I think, what's kind of happened to us here in the States, is this sort of over and over again messaging. And people have sort of, you know, in a very different way, obviously, but they've sort of been hypnotized by non-critical, non-analytical thought. They're just sort of regurgitating a line. And that was, yeah, you picked up on it. That's the exact point of that, is that
Yeah.
it's a repetitive thing.
Yeah.
Cabaret Voltaire
Oh,
had
yes.
this thing about repetition. They would repeat lines over and over again, because it was like it almost like loses its meaning completely. And that was like their thing. Like they wanted to just like inundate you and hypnotize you. And that was, yeah, I wanted to make a message about the feeling of being here. And obviously I don't I don't live in the UK, but and I don't live anywhere else. But it's like I feel like these are narrative patterns that are happening in all
Yeah,
over the world.
they are. They are. Maybe not so much here yet. This is such a small country.
Yeah. Well, you guys did pretty all right recently with your last electoral processes. So,
Oh no, I'm in Malta.
oh, you're in Malta. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
Yeah,
were in
not
the
not
UK.
the UK. I'm
Oh,
in
okay.
Malta, so we're such a tiny island.
Oh shit. Yeah. So even more so, I have no idea what's going on there.
Neither do we. It's just such a tiny place, you know. It's incredible. It is so tiny.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
I can't
Yeah, I've
remember.
always wanted to go. I got to go check it out
It
sometime.
is about what is it, 19 miles by 8? It's
Oh, wow.
tiny,
No
but
kidding. Yeah, no.
there is so much here that would amaze people.
Yeah.
You know, people come for a week or 2 weeks and say that will be enough to see everything, won't it? No,
No way. Oh, wow.
no, not at
That's
all.
awesome.
Not at all. You will not see think everything in two. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
impossible. If you want to take the actual culture, the history and things like that, you'll never do it.
Right.
2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I've been coming here until I actually lived here, obviously. Uh,
Mhm.
what, 50 odd years?
Oh, wow.
And I still haven't seen everything.
Yeah.
You just can't do
Yeah.
it. There is so much. And it's like, oh, I'll see that tomorrow. But then there's something else that will get in the way of that because there's something else to see. And there is a lot. There is a lot. But
Yeah.
people who like history come here and they go away thinking, wow. I mean, there's structures here that are older than the pyramids and
Wow.
things like that, you know, and
I
it's,
had no idea. I've now
yeah,
you're like you got to be there like a tourism spokesman. I mean, I got because now I really want to come.
yeah. And we have a goth festival.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say there's also the fests. Yeah.
Yeah, which is doing amazingly well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
we really want to do that.
yeah,
So I hope to
I
be there
imagine.
next time.
Yeah, because it is one hell of a little. Well, I say little festival. It's quite a big festival now.
Right.
It does attract big bands from all over the world, and amazingly, how many want to come back
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's so good. I mean, I think this is Combi Christ's third time.
Oh wow. Yeah. 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 I mean,
Aesthetic
something's
Perfection, I
been
think
done
it's their
right.
second or third.
Hmm.
So they do like coming back, which is
Hmm.
good. You've got another track, track 5, Normalized.
Yeah.
I heard musically The Cult,
Yeah.
but vocally Morrissey.
Yeah.
Combine them, and it's like, how did you do that, Dusty?
I grew up on the Smiths, man,
Ah,
and but the Cult is another. I mean, you nailed it. Like, actually, Ben Allen, the guy who produced our record in Maze Studios, I mean, he is a phenomenal master at what he does. I mean, he's a Grammy award winning producer. And when I sat down with him, he was like, we kind of talked about he listened to all the demos and he was like, okay, I hear things, but like, let's talk about where this sound is going to lay and what we kind of want to bring in influentially. And he was like, the first thing I hear is the Cult, like Love era Cult. And I was like, yes, 100%. Because the guitar, is very much so in that direction. But yeah, I grew up, I was, the Smiths when I was a teenager was like, as teenagers, I think, are off to find, that was definitely a vocally, I think, really big influence on me. Because I think, Morrissey I can find Morrissey to be a bit like nasal and like a little
yeah,
too whiny sometimes, but like when he really nails it, it's so beautiful and it's serene, which sucks because Morrissey has become such a troll, but like his voice is just absolutely incredible at times.
yeah,
And when I was a teenager, I mean, I used to just sing. I grew up in a very rural, like agrarian area of Georgia, when I was in middle school and high school. So like there was nothing to do back then because we didn't have high speed internet. It didn't exist in that area, and we just I just listened to records and I listened and I sang along to them. And that's how I kind of trained myself to sing, was just singing for thousands and thousands of hours along, much to my parents' chagrin, I'm sure, but just singing along to these records that I loved. And yeah, like those albums from the Smiths, just really resonated with me when I was a kid. But which is ironic because now when I listen to Smiths, I'm listening specifically to Johnny Marr like all the
Yeah.
time because it's just my brain can't wrap around what he's doing. And every time I try to learn a Smith song, I'm woefully technically unprepared for like the amount of movement that man does and the amount of syncopated sort of chord plucking that he does in this sort of jazzy sort of way. And it's just like,
He's very unique,
so,
isn't he, Johnny Marr?
yeah, God, he's such a great guitar player.
And have you
But
heard
yeah,
him
yeah,
sing?
great pickups there. You're nailing it, man.
And have you heard him sing, Johnny Marr?
Yeah, I actually
He
saw
does sound like
him
a bit
play.
like Morrissey, and it's just like
He nails it.
he does.
He
He really
he
does.
played Athens a couple years ago,
Oh, wow.
and I mean, it just blew my mind. I was like, Morrissey, who, man, we're good. Johnny fucking Marr, man.
Yeah, he is damn good. He is damn good. And is it about to start touring?
Yeah, so we leave on the 22nd. We head to Europe. We'll be there for in the continental Europe for like a week, mostly Germany, a little bit into
Netherlands, isn't
the
it?
Netherlands. Yeah, and then we cut across the channel and pick up with the Chameleons, which is like
Well,
my favorite band of all time. Like if I had to have a number, like one desert island band, desert island record, it would be Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons. I
well,
can listen to that album any mood, anytime. There's something magic in that record. um Mark is a musical genius and a really amazing guy too, but the whole band is really great. We've been really fortunate to open up for them a couple times this year. And yeah, we'll be doing, I think, 9 dates with them to include Ireland as well, which I don't think they've ever been to and we've never been to. So those, I'm really looking forward to that because I've been to Ireland just on my own accord. And I love Ireland. Love
no, I've
heavily.
never been there. Never.
It's such a beautiful country, and the people are, I mean, obviously people are people wherever you go. But I find there's a warmth to the Irish. It's kind of like Scotland, it's like, whereas the Scottish have like a dark sense of humor, the Irish are a little bit more cheery.
Yeah,
But still the humor is very pervasive, and I think that's a really wonderful thing.
they do have a great sense of humor. I know quite a few Irish people, and they've all got an incredible sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah,
Even against themselves. That's the
yes,
thing. They don't care.
yeah. Yeah, I think the Irish are like, they'll take the piss from themselves, but it's in like sort of a positive light, whereas the Scottish are a little bit more, they'll do the same, but it's like in a very like pessimistic kind of way. One of my favorite quotes about the Scottish is from the late musician Scott Hutchison of the band Frightened Rabbit, which I'm a huge fan of. He said at one point, he said, I think pessimism is a Scottish pastime. And I was like, yeah, that seems a pretty accurate statement. But yeah, the Irish are great, and I'm really looking forward to performing there. I think it's going to be a really, and with the Chameleons no less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll also be doing a few shows in the UK on our own, like headline shows with a really great band. I think they're from Wales. They're called the Nightmares, and they're really cool, kind of gothy post punk act. They're really awesome music.
Wow, that's great. I mean, you're doing amazingly well, aren't you? For a band that you haven't been around that long, have you? It's only what, a couple of years?
Yeah. Well, we started in the end of 2017, but we really caught our wind during the lockdowns. When I was really creating content and getting the word out and just
Yeah.
spreading the music. Um, and that just grew and grew to an extent. And it's funny because we're doing super well. I think in the grand scheme of as far as being a musician and like having like I left my job as a firefighter paramedic in 2022, and we kind of talked before the show started, but we there was a lot of fear about going into going from work that I had been part of for a very long time, that was like government work, like helping people with a very stable income and benefits and all that jazz. And I was on my pathway to a full retirement and all that sort of thing. And then going into complete uncertainty, financially. There, if you get sick or you get injured before a tour, that can devastate the whole tour. And that doesn't just devastate you, that knocks it out for the whole band. Like if I get sick or hurt, the whole band has lost that month of or whatever of income.
It's true.
And that's really tough. That's not an easy thing to constantly be thinking about. And obviously I don't like to, I don't believe that any musician in the world, anyone that's worth a damn anyway, thinks like worries about this in the financial aspect the most. But one thing that you do realize going into music full time is that you have to view it as a business, and you have to keep things balanced. And then you really start to realize that the margins start to really affect things. The margins are where you will either become bankrupt by the end of the year if you're not careful. Because the one thing about touring now is that it's so egregiously expensive. It's so wildly expensive, which is also sort of paradoxical because that's the only time we make any income. All of our merch sales online, all of our record sales, that just goes back to like supporting the band and putting the coffers up so that we can record another record or do more stuff like that, or create more merch, or do whatever we need to do. So the only time that we as individuals make any income is on the road, but it also takes money to make money. And the logistics and facilitation of touring is just wildly expensive. And we are not doing this lavishly. We're very minimal. We do it to a level of comfort that we have to, because if you're touring a month at a time, and we tour like between now it's like 5 to 7 months of the year, you have to have like at least a decent hotel room, because sleeping on floors and doing it the punk rock way, I've done that. And I'm 38 also, and my body is broken from being a soldier and being a firefighter, and I can't I just can't do that kind of thing anymore. So again, it's all about balance, and it's all about looking at it from different angles, and approaching it with an administrative mind, which really sucks, because all I want to do is make art. That's all at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yes, we're doing well, and I'm grateful to the universe. I'm grateful to the fans, the people that support us. I mean, that's what it really boils down to, right? Is like they are the most important aspect, because without those people, we can't do it. And it's a sort of a symbiotic conversational relationship where it's like we create this thing that people want to see, but we can only do it if they come out. But that's also, fortunately, the best facilitation of them hearing the music is like coming to see it live, in my opinion.
Exactly. When you get feedback as well, so you know how they're actually enjoying the music, and it gives you encouragement, I guess, to keep making music.
Right.
Because you can see that. And I'm assuming you occasionally get a message saying how something you've written has helped somebody, and that must give it such a boost.
No, 100%.
Even if you've helped one person through something.
Yeah.
Your music's achieved, I guess, a goal.
Oh, absolutely. And that is, the point of this stuff in full earnesty is that I write music for me first. I write stuff that helps me process the sort of myriad horrible things that I was I was actually at a bar the other night with a friend of mine who still works in the fire department that I work for, and we were just catching up, and I haven't seen him in a while, and we were just kind of going through all these stories, and when you when you go through the list of things, it's like shocking sometimes. It's like, man, we've seen a lot, you know, and it so this music is about helping myself because my brain is very broken. You know, I suffer from a pretty intense bout of PTSD, and it ebbs and flows. It gets better, it gets worse. You know, it's cyclic. But it is for the rest of my life, for the rest of my days. This will be a thing that I will contend with, and this stuff helps me. It helps bring a thing that could be a sort of a destructive energy. And earlier on, before I started to put all this energy into this music, it was a destructive energy. I was drinking too much. I just didn't care. I was becoming very numb to the world and
Yeah.
to just everything around me and myself. I wasn't taking care of myself because I was just so inundated. And that's the crazy thing about being a firefighter and paramedic too, is that you have all this trauma, but then every day there's more because you see horrible things all the
Yeah.
time, and it never just
Imagine.
it's not like being a soldier in a war, which I have also done, where there's an end. Every shift there's something that you see that's like, oh man. But so anyway, the point of that is that, you know, this music has really helped me process through sort of alchemy that destructive energy within me, that negative energy within me, and it's processed it into something constructive and cathartic. And I think that that's why it resonates with people, because they see the truth of it, and the lyrics, and the emotive element of it, and I guess they see maybe myself trying to help myself, but it does the same for them, because I try to write in universal ways. You don't have to be a firefighter or a veteran or anything to like understand just the desire to survive, and but also feeling hopeless within it, the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very common theme in a lot of the music that I write, is just like everything feels lost, but it isn't. You know, I write a lot of really dark lyrics, but I always try to keep just some tiny, even if it's just a tiny little pinpoint, just some point of light, because I don't think that everything is darkness, and I don't think that dark times are eternal. I think that the goodness in people and the goodness in the world will eventually win out. And like right now, we're like here in America, especially, we are facing such a dark time. And I think people need to acknowledge that, but also acknowledge that we will survive, we will get through. You know, we've just got to take care of each other, and we've got to really spend some deliberate time making actual efficacious action to make that happen, to take care of each other. It can't just be a complacent, like,
No,
we'll just stick our head in the sand and ride out the next 4 years. No, we have to be deliberate in the way that we do that. So I hope that, you know, that's like with modern horror. Again, obviously I couldn't foresee the future, but
no.
I think I almost wrote that like in advance of the possibility, you know, of this kind of thing happening. And yeah, you know, I hope that that is my ultimate hope above all else, that it gives people a mirror to look at themselves and look at the world around them, and at least acknowledge the bad, but accept that we will survive, and we have it within us to get through this.
We always do somehow.
Yeah. Yep.
Always get
Absolutely.
through things somehow. So, do the rest of the band have any input into the lyrics, into the music side, or is it just yourself, Dusty?
Uh, I mean, it's effectively just me.
Right.
You know, the band, I write the core of the song melodically with the guitar and the bass, you know, and then everybody else sort of coalesces around the the music, you know, and I won't go into it because it's just a sensitive thing at this point, but like Emily is no longer in the band.
Oh,
So I'm the only original member now. And we don't know who will facilitate keyboards going into the future. We have somebody covering that for now for touring purposes, but like, we won't be back into sort of a writing cycle for another couple months, like maybe January. But maybe I might really marinate on a couple ideas for the next record. I already have some sense of what it will be like, but that might be something that I sit on until the summer of next year, especially with the changes going on right now. But yeah, I mean, no, I didn't set out to make it like it, and I don't want it to be all about me. I think that the other band members like Emily, formerly, and all the other original members, Dan Geller on bass, wrote some of the most wicked bass lines of all time. Jason Fusco, our original drummer, incredible drummer. And I have no ill will for anybody that's no longer in the band. Just this circumstance of life, and or disagreements or whatever happens. But uh, it's always kind of been, yeah, I kind of create the core, the heart, and then the corporeal elements of instrumentation sort of form around that heart. It's almost like if you've ever seen Hellraiser, where
yeah.
like the heart of the guy coming out of the floorboards, it's like starts with the heart and then it just sort of coalesces around that. Yeah, and I don't know, I want to, I think like I'm actually going to be maybe doing some side project stuff in the next couple years here with some people, and I'm really interested in that process because those are, I want to be like a little, like I want to be hands off of those. Like I want to just like write a guitar part or like sing a bit or whatever. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess because it is so personal, and I have such a very, I'm very, very, very particular about lyrics. Lyrics to me are the most important aspect of a song, outside of the immediate sort of hookiness of a song. Like, yeah, sonically, it has to be pleasing to me
Yeah.
because I'll never listen to lyrics if it's not a good song. But lyrics are so particular, and I feel like lyric writing is a dying art. Like a lot of people think of lyrics as like an afterthought now, which is so upsetting to me because there's a lot of really amazing musicianship right now, but there's not a lot of really great songwriting happening. And yeah, I think in certain bands and certain circumstances, and I think that is the case with Vision Video, it is best to have one kind of unified person, like maybe one
Yeah.
individual writing the core of the songs and pushing that identity and that heart and soul of it through the lyrics and through the sort of abiding sense of song structure or whatever, the things that make Vision Video.
Yeah, I think that works in your case, doesn't it, properly? Um, Especially if you get changes in a band where someone has been quite influential in there and then they could go, and what then happens to those songs?
Right.
And as that taken away that essence where having it central to you as the beating heart of the band in a way, whatever happens around you doesn't affect the band in a
Yeah.
way. You
Yeah.
keep it all together. It's still that same sound will still be there.
Yes. And there's a trade off to that, though. It's a lonely experience
Yeah.
in a way, I think, because I mean, it's just for whatever reason or another, it's just the way that the songs have always been written with this span and will continue to be done. Um, and there's a lot of solitude in that, and sort of isolation in a way, um, because you just sort of come up with these songs and then say, "Hey, all right, here you guys, like, put your parts," and And there's obviously collaboration, and there's like ideas, and there's, but it's not like the band gets together in a room and like songs coalesce. It's like I sit in the studio room for hundreds and hundreds of hours with guitars and synthesizers and bass guitars and vocal mics up, and I just make a lot of noise until something starts to coalesce and become coherent, and then I just hammer that for hours and hours and hours and hours and I chisel away at the marble or whatever until it starts to take form, and then I start to kind of give it to the band and say, hey, here's an idea, here's the vibe, maybe I don't have the lyrics yet, but this is what I'm thinking, and then they start to do their things, and but again, moving forward, it's going to be a very, maybe even totally different experience, because with Emily gone, and not knowing who's going to facilitate what, I am writing, like, we don't have a bass player anymore. Like, our bass is totally backtracked in a live performance aspect.
Yep.
And because I'm writing the bass and I can't do both simultaneously and sing on top of that. What a feat that would be.
Amazing.
But yeah, with my feet. But I think it's going to take on a very different tone. And I think this record also, modern horror is really, and especially side A of the record, so the first like 5-6 tracks, I think are really, really good examples of the direction that we're moving. It's way more guitar driven. It's way more like, it's heavier, it's darker, it's the pop sensibility I'm not really interested in anymore, because I've kind of done the like, we've done the like catchy hooky stuff, and like, and I mean, I always like a good riff and a good hook. I mean, that will always be a part of it, but I'm more interested in the aggressive raw energy of what made this music really fucking cool to me in the early 80s, where it was still kind of punk rock. That's what I really want to bring back into the scene, because there's a lot of like really beautiful, like sort of dancey, it's like drum machine, keyboard, and a guitar, and there's a lot of that going on in the scene right now, and I think that's really cool. But I want to make loud, angry, dark music. That's where my interest with goth and post-punk is right now, is like, bring it back to an assault, bring it back to Specimen and Alien Sex Fiend and Bauhaus and the rock and roll I want to bring back to it. So we're gonna see a very different thing in the next so many releases, and maybe that's an EP in the next year or so or whatever, or maybe I get lucky and write another great record. But writing for me is slow. It's slow machinery, because I'll write 20 songs and throw out 19 of them. Well, I don't throw them out, but they live on my hard drive. There's 50 Vision Video songs that people will never hear, because they're not good songs. They're okay, but they're not great.
They're not what you want to put out.
I refuse to just put okay songs on a record. I don't want to do that.
Wow. There are a lot of good bands coming out, though. I think new bands, and they are very traditional, what you would say goth, I guess. One of them, and I recommend you try listening to them if you can. They're called Black Rose Moves.
Haven't heard of them.
From stupid Alexa machine going on and giving us an answer to that. They're from Birmingham. They've only got 3 songs out at the moment, and if you like Fields of the Nephilim,
definitely,
Sisters of Mercy,
right?
These are somewhere in between.
Oh, cool!
And they are really good to listen to. Have a go. But I would also recommend anybody listening to this show tonight or today, is that album of yours, Modern Horror. It's not there's no dull moment because every song has its own individuality, I guess, about
Right.
it. And each one could be its own single because they are so good. It's not
Thank you.
boring. It's a very exciting album. And to be fair, when I first saw your early Vision video, I thought it was more poppy.
Yeah. Oh, it was
And
definitely in that realm. Yes.
so this is the first album I've listened to start to finish. I'm being upfront with you there.
No,
And
I trust me. I love that feedback.
yeah, and it is honestly, it's a fantastic album. It took me
Thanks.
by surprise completely.
Yeah, I figured it would for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this isn't the Vision video I saw like 2 years ago. What's
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
This is very different. But then I put two and two together and thought, would Dusty have been doing so many gigs around Europe, coming from America, if he hadn't done something special? He wouldn't have been able to achieve that. And then listening to that album, and you think, that's why.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
It is honest.
I knew that people would be kind of shocked in a way,
Yeah.
because yeah, you know, and a lot of it is just like simply I've had like when we wrote those first two records, I mean, we were all working full time, you know, and I was a full time firefighter paramedic. When this record was written, I have had nothing but time outside of touring to really hone in on making it like something a cut above. And I think that's the really tough thing for musicians these days that are having to work, you know, because many musicians are having to work, you know,
Yeah.
part if not full time to get their music out there. But it takes, for me at least, it takes so much time sitting in this room with the instruments to find that really special moment and find that hook and find that riff and find the layering of sound and just experiment, you know. Like sometimes I have to be in a very like, I can't just go into the room and be like, I'm going to write 3 songs today. You know, I spent a huge amount of time in this room with in the demo writing process where I was just frustrated just standing here with a beat, like a drum machine loop, sometimes for like, I'm not exaggerating, like an hour, just staring at a screen with my eye or with my eyes closed, listening to a drum loop and like playing notes on a bass and just trying to find, you know, that right note for that feeling, or just, you know, wherever that comes out of the ether. And that just takes so much time. And it really bums me out that you know, a lot of people don't have the ability to have that time,
No.
because there's so many, like I'm not the world's best musician, not by a long shot. I'm a mediocre best guitar player in a lot of ways, but I'm good at finding the sound, the hook, and the thing that pulls you in. And I wish that everybody would be able to have that amount of time that it takes to do that. But yeah, I mean, we had the time, you know, we had the space and the breathing room to like just focus and not feel pressure to put something out and just to get something out for the sake of getting it out. Because I think that happens a lot nowadays with
Oh,
all these
does.
damn algorithms and all this social media shit, and it's just like this push for more and more and more and never stop. And it's like, that's not how good music's made. That's how
No,
mediocre music is made, you know.
exactly that. It's just, there is a lot of rubbish out there.
Yeah.
And you can tell that certain bands haven't put much effort into what they're putting out. And then
Yeah.
you get, ironically, a lot of smaller bands putting out some really good stuff. And you know, they've poured their heart and soul into it.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a big difference then. And you think, you know, this band here is living on its name, on its
Right.
past. Whereas these
Yes.
young bands coming up, are are fighting for that little
Yeah.
position, and they're putting everything into it, and that
Yeah.
really shows through. And you think these are the ones that should be up there, but
Yeah. And I mean, to that point though, it's funny because you look at all these first wave sort of goth and post-punk bands that are still out there kind of touring. You look at The Cure, this is their last record, probably. They
yeah,
may have maybe one more or something, but like I think, but they're definitely getting to the end of touring.
yeah,
Because touring, even when you're The Cure, where all Robert Smith has to do is like get to the place,
yeah,
fly from point A to point B, or get on the bus and go to point A to point B, and then he like walks out on stage for the sound check. Once it sounds good, walks off, and then somebody like hands him a guitar, and then he walks up there. Like that's all he's obligated to do, and that makes it very much so easier. But even with that, like I'm sure touring as Robert Smith and The Cure is very hard work, and touring is exhausting, and it takes so much wherewithal to do it for not just once but like multiple times within a year, for multiple months within a year. And yeah, it's we're watching a lot of these sort of legacy acts, or whatever you want to call them, on their swan song out.
yeah,
And what I think, there's really two options that will happen. There will either be a desire and a concerted effort by booking agencies, promoters, and venues to really amplify the bands that are still keeping this stuff alive, or it will just drop off.
yeah,
But a lot of that really depends on the people that go to the shows, to actually go to the shows. And the more that people show up to smaller bands, and to bands that are, filling anything between a 100 and a 500, capacity venue, that's really making the framework for the bands that are out there working really, really hard to make things happen. That's going to build the foundation for those bands to be able to escalate and to do bigger things and to play bigger moments. But I honestly just don't know what that will look like in, say, 5 years from now.
no,
It's
because a
hard
lot
to
of
say.
these artists are getting so well. They're a lot older than we are,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like, well, how much longer can they go? But there again, I saw at the festival here in April,
Yeah.
Front 242 came.
Oh yeah, those guys are
I
great
mean,
live.
they're what, in their 70s?
They've got to be up
I
towards
believe,
their
I
later
believe,
60s. Yeah.
I believe some of them are in their 70s. I'm going to tell you now, Dusty, standing there at the front, and these guys came out, and I thought, geez, these make young artists dancing around on the stage look tired, because
Yes.
these guys are so energetic. Where have
Yeah.
they
Oh,
got that
I
from?
saw them a couple years ago, and they
Yeah,
just blew me away. I was like, whoa, these guys are really getting after it. This is
they
awesome.
don't care that there's no age barrier there.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
They are absolutely fantastic still. I mean, wow, unbelievable.
Hmm.
That really shocked me. That did. Seeing
Yeah.
how active they are. I mean, they really are not kind of old grandpas, are they? They're
Right. Right. For sure. No, I mean, I think there's a lot of, you're right. There's a big disparity in these older acts and in their energy on stage. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I don't even think it's a physical thing as much as it is, do you really want to be doing this or not?
yeah.
You know, because I'm really, obviously Tom Ashton of the March Violets, like he's one of my best friends of my entire life now. He recorded and produced our first two records at his studio.
Wow.
And he lives here in Athens, but like, they're on tour right now with the March
Well,
Violets again.
they they were
And they
here.
just put out a brilliant new record. Yeah. And they came to you guys.
They were
Yeah.
here in April. Yeah.
And they're so phenomenal live. I mean, the energy, the attitude, and I love watching Tom and Rosie and Matt, because you watch all three of them just turn into to 18-year-olds again. Like
It's
just
amazing.
immediate, this magic occurs. And the same with the Chameleons. The Chameleons live is a religious experience for me. Like, I mean, obviously I'm biased because it's my favorite band, but like, even if I knew nothing about them and walked in cold to one of their shows, the connection they have with the audience, and Mark doesn't even, there's not even a ton of back and forth, but what he does say, and the way that they perform and the way that their show is structured, it's just so emotive and connective to the audience. um and yeah, like there but then you see some bands, and I won't name names, but you see some bands from that age now, and it's just like they're just there to do it, and I don't even think that they really want to be.
No,
I
I
get the
think they're doing
sense it's
it
like,
purely for the money.
yeah, it's like I need to pay my bills
Yeah.
and maybe pad my retirement a little bit, so here's a show,
Yeah.
which I don't blame that thought process, but it's a disservice to the fans.
Oh, definitely.
Expect something really cool, and then they're just like phoning it in. Like, that's bullshit.
I mean, I saw UK Subs last year
Mhm.
on their final, well, allegedly final tour, which
Right.
I don't think they want to stop. But wow, for their age, or for especially for the lead singer Charlie's age, I
Yeah.
think he's coming up 80. I mean,
Wow.
he's fantastic still.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he's older, but he still jumps and he still
Yeah.
goes around. It's like, wow, really giving it his all still.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah. And
great.
then I saw, I'm sure you've heard of them, not the most savory name nowadays, but Sex Gang Children.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's fantastic live still.
Oh really? Oh, that's cool.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah.
I love that. Was a huge one for me in high school, like especially when I first really started getting into goth music.
Yeah.
That was one of those. They were so avant-garde and so dissonant
Different.
and weird, and I was just like, oh, whatever this
And his
is, man. Like
voice.
that song Barbarossa to me is like
Yeah. And his
just
voice.
such a. What's that?
His voice.
Oh God, yes,
Just
yes.
no one's like it. No one.
No, no, no.
Um,
Yeah, Andy's voice immediately
yeah.
when
I
it
mean,
comes up.
I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and we've been quite good friends ever since. And
Oh, cool.
um, they're hoping to come to Malta just for a holiday
Yeah,
to see us. And he's just such a great guy, but
yeah,
and he's a genuine guy as well. He's really genuine. And but seeing them live, and it was just like, my God, he sounds exactly the same as he did, you know, in the late 70s, early
yeah.
80s. It's the
That's awesome.
same band, brilliant. And when
Yeah.
they played the classics like Dici and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and that power that came through the whole floor and walls, it was like, wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear because I'm a fan. So
um, do you know what? I know you're going to be busy, but while you're in England, they are actually doing some gigs in England.
oh, okay.
So if you maybe have a day off or a night off
Yeah,
that's not tied, you could see them.
I
Uh,
will definitely check into it because
and
yeah,
seriously,
I mean at
they
the
are
tail
worth,
end I'll be having a few days off and maybe that'll work out.
yeah, they are worth seeing. They are really, really good. Still, really good. Um,
Awesome.
Still one of the best. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that band. Always have
yeah.
done.
Likewise, I got a compilation CD pack from, I think maybe it was like Cleopatra Records or somebody put it out. It was just like all their like best of or something, but it was like
Yeah,
it was like 2 or 3 CDs. And I remember just listening to that like a million times because that, especially in the early 2000s, at least, growing up here in like the Athens area out in the rural nowhere, there was there was like nothing about them on the internet because the internet was very like this, early
yeah,
2000s internet. Everything I learned about goth music was from two places: message boards online and from the record stores,
yeah,
and that was it. Like there was no, you couldn't just go and like type in like goth music into Google and then it just had like every bit of information you
exactly.
could ever possibly want and find obscure things. it was like a there's like a preciousness to finding a band like Sex Gang Children, and it was, and yeah, I loved.
And even now, it's very hard to type that into anything.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh God, man,
Yeah.
why couldn't you have chosen something else?
I've noticed now they've changed their name on Facebook to Sex Gang.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I refer to them as. Whenever if I go on like I do a lot of live streaming on TikTok where I like do makeup stuff, or I stream video games, or I'll just listen to music and talk with people,
Yeah.
and I will recommend them, but I will say, look up Sex Gang. You will find a band with another word attached. I don't want to say it in that conjunction because I don't want to get ban hammered
That's
by,
not,
whatever.
yeah. Because I've typed it into Facebook before and it came up, do you need help? You can get
Yeah.
help. And it's like, it's
Like,
a band.
no. I'm not on the list.
No, it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super unfortunate.
See, back in those days, that was just a name from a book, wasn't it? It was a story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those
Yeah.
things. And nowadays, unfortunately, bad people made everything bad.
Yeah.
So
And the internet is their tool, and that's the sad
sadly
reality of that.
it is really sad, isn't it? It really is sad. Dusty, is there anything else you'd like to mention? Because
I mean, yeah, we've got so many shows coming. Obviously we're about to hit Europe and the UK. All those shows are like ticket links and all that stuff is all on our website. Like, and that's the hub for everything, is just visionvideoband.com. We sell our merch direct. That all comes from us. It's, we it's made locally here in Athens and yada yada, so you can get all that there. But we're about to be announcing like a broader sort of US tour for the States, in like kind of in the late winter into the spring, and that'll be kind of all around. We're going to be touring less like long-term tours, more like a couple weeks at a time, because I just sort of need that in my life. I need to be able to come home and take a couple weeks off instead of doing these, like we did a 2-month long tour this year, and it was just like I got home and I was like, I need to do nothing for a month. And so anyway, lots of shows are coming. They'll be announced very soon. And obviously the band is going through changes, and I'm having to change a lot of things in my life, and but we are continuing, and I think what's going to come is going to be very different, but it's going to be very much so in the vein of what you hear in modern horror, and I'm just excited about it. I think we're gonna hopefully keep the spirit of this spooky weird thing alive, or undead again, and I think that above all else, I just hope that people continue to support their scenes. That this all hinges on people supporting your local scene, not just when Vision Video comes through, or whenever whatever band that you love comes through. Support the goth nights, and support the DJs and the local heroes, because they're the ones that make things happen, and they're the ones that create the framework for anything to occur.
Exactly.
So and I guess I would just, my final thought would just be to say to everybody, sincerely thank you for the support, and for just allowing us to be able to do this, because it's a precious, special thing, and it's not lost on us at any moment, and I appreciate it so deeply. It's an awesome thing.
It certainly is. And from me, that album, fantastic, Dusty. Well done on it.
Thank you.
And it's visionvideoband.com.
That's correct.
And I will make sure there is a link to that underneath the interview, so everybody can find that easily for you.
Excellent.
So Dusty, Vision Video, thank you so much for this time.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation, and we'll do it again.
Definitely. More than welcome as well, Dusty. More than welcome.
Sounds great.